I'm so thrilled about this one. Let's get started.
Hello, my name is Bill James Abram, and I'm the coordinator of Climate Momentum, of which Sheila is and her planning committee is a part. So welcome to this evening and welcome to those of you who are viewing from home. I know Sheila has thanked her organizing committee for all their work in bringing tonight together, but I'm not sure that anybody has thanked Sheila for all her work in bringing together. I want to make a shout out as well to City Hall, who have worked with the planning committee to provide the space in the auditorium, which is a really ideal space for us, and to provide the tech support. So Tatiana and Alex are with us tonight, and thanks for your support on the tech. Yeah. So two more things, and then I'm going to introduce Derek. One is our next Climate Momentum event is coming in 2 weeks. That'll be our winter climate mixer. There are posters on the tables for that with details, as well as extras on the information table at the back. For those of you who are watching from home, if you can find the details on our Facebook page or on our website, climatemomentum.ca, or simply go to search Climate Momentum events in Eventbrite. You used it to register tonight, you can use it to register for 2 weeks from now. Our guest on that Wednesday will be Franz Hartmann from the Alliance for a Livable Ontario, and he'll be talking about their 5 Ways Home campaign. And second, if you like what you see here tonight, if you like these climate conversations, if you coming in a couple of weeks, if you like the mixers that you've been attending and you want to be included in them going forward, sign up for our newsletter. We'll reach out to some of you who signed up tonight to invite you to do that. But if you haven't already done so, sign up for our newsletter. You can do that at our website online and be kept up to date. It's not an obnoxious newsletter. We only send it a couple of times a month. Unlike the political campaigners who are going to start emailing you quite a bit in the next few weeks. So, Derek Sapnick. Derek is Vice President of Technology at a company called S2E Technologies. And if you haven't visited their website in anticipation of tonight, I encourage you to do so. It may sound odd to say it, but it's an exciting website. Their expression of their vision and their mission and their purpose is clear and really captivating. We'll get a sense of that tonight, I'm sure, as Derek speaks. S2E Technologies was also a major partner in what is, I have it as the largest net zero development in Canada, and that is the West 5 development in London. Some of us I know have visited when there have been tours of the West 5 site in development, but tonight we'll hear that, I'm sure, as part of Derek's comments. And so we're really pleased to have him with us tonight. And Derek, the floor is yours.
Test this one here. Am I on? Yes, no? No? We'll just stick this. We'll try to keep it easy and consistent for the sound team. I see myself, so hopefully you folks online can see me also. Thanks for the welcome. I have been looking forward to meeting you folks. We have been working on a couple of projects I'm excited about, but we've been spending, honestly, more than 10 years on them. And although it's a success story and it's a very positive story and we're very thankful for it and proud of it, it's the only one and there should be more. So I'm really hoping that tonight you guys will all get something out of this and that we'll be talking about doing something here. And that would be fantastic. Okay, so let's dive in here. I feel like I'm going to be jumping across the tips of icebergs. There's so many topics related to this theme of alternative energy options. And we kind of almost joke with some of these titles. We talk about it as alternatives. I'm not going to talk about renewable energy tonight. I'm going to include it in everything I talk about because that's not an alternative. That's the basis that I built and live from. And alternatives are the things we've been doing the last couple of decades, and they're not working. So we need to get back to the basics of being able to be independent in our communities and actually have the resources we need from our communities and connect them in intelligent ways and not be nosy or painful about it, but we should be more local. We just should. Energy should, everything should. So I'm going to try to talk about meaningful things that pick up on those themes tonight to see if I can work with this while it's transcribing me. We got to get used to this now too, man. Adjusting to being transcribed when I'm in my meetings. Okay, so I have 6 themes for you tonight that I hope will be meaningful. You're going to relate to all of these. This will be my language. You probably got your own language for describing these ideas. But this is what we're experiencing right now as we talk about everything that's going on in construction and in energy and in all the related fields that sort of overlap and weave between those. It's a complicated space. And it touches on every aspect of the way we live. So I'm going to focus on these 6 themes and try to be constructive as we go through here. I have a particular interest in how housing is going to work for the next 2 decades because it's broke right now. You folks probably own your own houses for the most part. My daughter is scared of being ever able to afford a house. And you guys can all relate to that. You've all got family members who are struggling in their own ways. This is a very real thing that wasn't real before. The Canadian dream included home ownership, and it doesn't anymore. If you do interviews on the street of younger generations, they don't even think it's realistic. So we need to fix that, but that's not going to be a short journey. So these are some of the trends that I see active in the market, and then I'm going to talk a bit about what we've learned and what we're doing about it, and I'm going to use our projects, Eve and West 5, as examples and try to keep it as real as I can. And if I do this well, you'll have more questions when we're done tonight than you do right now. So that's the goal. We'll see how we do. But we're going to talk a bit about densification, a bit about climate response. You've all heard, I mean, you guys are a climate group, so you've heard lots of things about climate. I'm going to try to touch that back to these themes as well. Affordability comes out of all that, and we end up talking about transportation, the technology we use for all these things. And believe it or not, in this capitalist economy, business models are one of the most powerful tools that we can use to solve problems. So we're going to talk about business. First, densification. There is so much to be said about density and why it's changing and how it's changing. I used to be a consultant for a lot of years, and then I jumped the fence and joined a development company because they were doing the things that I really wanted to be able to do, and I couldn't do them with my consulting. I was always sort of beholden to what the project budget said and who the leaders behind the project were, and you could influence them, but I couldn't drive anything. Now I work for a developer at S2E, very proud to be part of a team that is doing these projects and trying to show people how to do it different, which means I see all the math and I see where it doesn't work. And it's very difficult to buy a piece of land and put, you know, a small-ish house on a big-ish property and grow all your food on your property. The math doesn't support it. So most developers, we like to call them big bad developers, but a lot of them are just trying to feed their families in the ways that they know how. I have a much greater sympathy for them than I used to when I was on the other side of the fence pointing at them. Now that I am one, it's funny how the grass changes when you're on the other side of the fence. So it is an interesting challenge. And what we see more and more is density goes up because it has to. Like, it doesn't work any other. If we say we need more houses, guess what? You get more houses in smaller space because that's the only way they can afford to build them. So there are environmental and climate benefits to that, but that's not why it's happening. It's happening because that's all we can afford to build. So as a developer, I'm looking at 20 units an acre on this site. It's about a 4.5 acre site. Each of those helical buildings there, this is Eve Park, evepark.ca. It's 21 homes per building, and each of the buildings takes up about an acre-ish, pretty almost exact. It fits really nicely in that weird piece of land, which is also handy for us because, you know, land is pretty much consumed in most urban centers, and we're talking about repurposing land now. So if you can be creative with the shape, that really helps. So what we're finding is that we have to be really creative about the different things that we do on the land. And if we can do things that support density in clever ways, then we can get some resources back out of the land. So in this site particularly, we were wrestling with all the land we were losing to parking because they're probably all driven by new neighborhoods. And you've seen that, you know, they're kind of postage stamp amounts of grass around mostly a house. And then most of the yard is going to be full of the house and the driveway. So we were looking at building townhomes. We were trying to make our numbers work. By the time we're done, 21 homes times 4, there's really nothing left but asphalt to get to the homes. So we stacked up our parking in the parking towers. If you take a look at, now not all of you can see me point with pointers, so I'm going to be careful and try to describe this. If you look at the photo bubble on the top right of my slide there, you can see there's a little call out that shows the front of the parking garage. These garages are stacked cars on a machine. So there's 2 doors at the bottom. You go in the left if you're an SUV, you go in the right if you're a sedan, and then there's a squished Ferris wheel. And I've got 14 cars stacked on top of each other on a moving carousel in the sedan tower, and I've got 12 SUVs on the other side, which means I chew up 4 driveways worth of space to put these 2 towers in there, and I got rid of 22 driveways, which we're thrilled about. So now all of a sudden I still have a pretty tight lot, but I can turn all those 22 driveways into edible landscaping and into trails and get people outside again. And because we've got this helical building design, we're stealing a whole bunch of European courtyard concepts there. There's not a ton of space, but it's a very usable, friendly space. So you can get out in the courtyard and have your coffee with your neighbors, or you can sit on the back, and because it's arced away from the neighbor, you actually have a lot of privacy, even though you're right beside the trail. And then that trail on the white trail on the left of the slide that cuts through the whole drawing. On the north end of the picture, which is compass south, that points towards downtown. And that trail system connects up all the way through the whole downtown. And if you go down to the bottom left of the drawing, it's actually going north. There's a 50-acre park right there. So when I build, I don't need everything on my site. I need smart ways to get to everything that you need. And if we're going to talk about smart uses of energy, I mean, a real big one is just don't use the energy you don't need to use. I've got 50 acres of park right there. Just go to it. Make it part of my site. Make my trails go through it. Connect up. Use the resources you already have. These are themes that we push in our projects. When we talk about smart development, smart densification, I think that's a big part of it. What do you already have? What can you already use? Don't do it again, right? Do it well by doing what's already there, building with what's already there. Best energy that you can save is the energy you don't use at all. That's the cheapest energy to build. And then that affects everything. My topics will all blend together. But if you take a look at most Western world occupants, just across all the national borders, don't even seem to affect this. Most of the Western world, a lot of you will probably know this already, about a third of your carbon impact and environmental impact, about a third of it is transportation issues. It's how you move back and forth around between the buildings you use. About a third of it is the buildings you use and where do you live, work, and play, all that kind of thing. About a third of it is the diet you eat, which I can do very little about as a developer. But I can build a really good building, so I can like the first third real good. These are all net zero energy buildings. The solar on the roof is enough for all your energy needs. So we're proud of that. That's a lot easier to do than it used to be. And these are, thick walls, lots of insulation, good windows. Thank you, suppliers, for doing all their innovation. So we can build really good buildings. So we did that. But we were wrestling with this other question, or if we're going to densify anyway, what about transportation? And what we've discovered, I'm going to go into several other slides on, has a huge impact if you do it right. By freeing up this land and sort of hiding all of my cars close, but hidden. I mean, they're in the garage, it's a short walk away, but they're hidden. So now I have the land back. We have 20 edible land plantings on these sites. There's berries, there's teas, there's a couple of things you can make bread out of, there's spices. So again, I'm not a farmer, I'm a builder. But if I can put all this stuff on the site and make it easy access and make it so that people walk past this on, when they're out walking the dog or when they're out taking the kids to school, it becomes part of your life and it becomes so much easier to start thinking, right? So we all, as builders, we talk about building people homes. No matter what I say and how good my marketing team is, I build boxes, I don't build homes. You move in and make it home. But if I can make it easier for you by putting things like beautiful, pleasant smells all around the site, and you can eat some of those things and make teas out of it, it just makes it easier. So then all this other energy stuff just gets built in and you start reducing your carbon footprint, saving energy without even meaning to, because you just like living there. You just like walking more. That's smart design. Climate response is all over this stuff, obviously. Okay, you guys are the people who show up at climate events. And you understand how the public receives this, that there's a lot of debate, but there's a lot of debate. It's not all intelligent. A lot of the politicians have opinions on these things. So the more politicians that get involved, the less the intelligent design is. I hope there's not any politicians in the room. If you are, we love you for being here. Thank you for being here. But it's so challenging to try to keep these topics real. And I don't envy the politicians because they have to be an expert in everything because they've got people complaining about their budget. So what do you spend more budget on a climate thing, or do you spend more of that budget on the healthcare? Or you tax more people so you have more budget so you can do both? Like, they lose no matter what they do. So these topics get really muddy in the very best of cases. So what we try to do is make it just dumb simple. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to argue about any of that. We're just going to do the right thing at the simple local scale. I'm going to build you a building you want to live in. It's going to have lots of natural light. And you don't have to worry about the fact that all those windows are triple pane windows and they're really good and they're going to last a long time. And all those walls are a little thicker than you thought they were. And they're also going to keep you really warm. And you're going to move in because the place smells really good and it's quieter. And then you ask smart questions and you start visiting your neighbors and realizing, well, there's a lot of work that went into making it quieter and smelling better. And all those things help you with your energy. So as a builder, we do climate response for all the wrong reasons and we get all the right results. If you measure sound transmission between attached homes and you measure smells, because the smells transfer as well, and you measure energy flows, go figure they're all the same thing. If you isolate the box from the box beside it, you get all these benefits all at once. So if I work really hard on air tightness, because my technical team is all about energy and climate, we get quieter and more comfortable and people get happy about that. So a lot of these things really are 16 faces of the same idea. So we celebrate that and we try to make sure that we do that well. And then when we can make it practical, if I can do things like hide the solar on the roof and just put a ton of it up there, and if that's enough, great, everybody's happy. It keeps it out of harm's way for kids running around with their baseballs, and it just makes everything easy. And then when I need to, I'll show you some other pictures here of we've got lots of other creative places we can put solar and lots of other energy systems we can use besides solar. We've got lots of tools in our toolkit now. This is a video. These slides will be available for you later. I'm not going to play the video, but Sifton is the developer we've worked with. They're a very easy one to pick on as a good archetype of a big bad developer. They're a family-owned company that has been family-owned for 100 years. They built 24% of the city of London. They didn't do that by accident. So they're the big bad developer. They've had to work really hard to take care of their family and a lot of other families. And when you know these people, they're really lovely, hardworking people. And this is an impressive project. And this video is just a really great summary of it. So you'll get the link later if you want to download this. I encourage you to watch it. It's a few seconds, but it's inspiring. Half those buildings are real now. We've been working on this for over 10 years. The other half of them are still coming. I'm going to show you a couple more pictures. When you look at it from above, you just get a sense of the scale of this. This is a 70-acre site. It's master planned. It's got a little bit of everything. We've built 1,000 homes in there so far. They're all different. A couple of apartment buildings and a bunch of townhomes and just different ways to live because you need that in a community. All 5-minute walkable from each other. We've got a couple office buildings. At this point, I think there's about 150,000 square feet of not homes and offices and restaurants and shops. And so it is actually a community now. There's a lot of people who call it home and they've settled. And it's only half built. We've got lots more coming. So this video will give you a bit of a taste for it. It is proof that it works. And if you look at the different examples of technology that we've used in this site, it's a lot of very easy themes. The thing that I like about it is that it all scales really well. If I build a home and I put more solar on it, as I introduce a load to the grid, I also introduce a generator into the grid, and you can scale with that and keep working. This site is big enough that we've got some buildings that can't really be net zero. There's a thing called energy density. At some point, I just have too much building under the roof, and I'm going to need more places to get energy from. If I put another 3 stories on there and have no more roof, I've got 3 more floors of people using energy, but no more energy to give them. At some point, you run out. So what we've done here, at our company, we spend way too much time talking to every level of government. We have had some successes. We've worked on the virtual net metering program or the community net metering program, depending on where you live. This is the only place in Ontario that it's law right now. They're watching us and using us as an example. Lots of people lobbying in favor of this. It's likely to roll out broader later, but what it is a whole complicated set of laws to say that we can share energy between buildings, which is way more complicated than you would think it is. But the utilities have done it forever, but for private people to do that, it's a big deal. So the homes on the bottom left are about 105 to 120% generators. They make more energy than they need. And the extra, usually nobody would do because you can't get paid for that. So it's just a waste. So why would I spend money on that? But we've got this special rule that lets us save it. So if you look at the big guy on the right, you're looking at the north side of the building. The south side of the building is a parking garage that's covered with solar, and it's got solar panels up the face of the building. So we've covered that building. It's a very efficient building. So the big guy there is about 80% more efficient than code. It's a very good building, but it's 80%. It's not 100. So we borrow the energy from the guys on the bottom left, and you add the whole thing together, and it's net zero. Which I shouldn't assume everybody knows what I mean. Net zero means over the course of the year. It doesn't mean at the same day per se, but over the course of the year, we make enough energy to provide for all of our own needs. We're very thankful we've got a good, reliable grid. We live in Canada. We have a lot of privileges we take for granted. London Hydro's service record is outstanding. The brownouts, blackouts that they have are rarely longer than a minute, even more rare for under 2 minutes. So we don't really need a lot there. And we put our solar all over the place and dump it into the grid. And then when we need it, we buy it back. And it actually is on the edge of the city, so it's actually helping stabilize the grid. That's a complicated engineering discussion for another day. But the utility there, London Hydro, is one of our partners, and they're very excited and watching to see how this kind of expansion can affect the way that the city expands. Because it's very expensive to build new neighborhoods. You got to put sewers out there, you got to run hydro towers out there. We forget, but there's all these other things we have to do to make the city bigger. So can we do some of those by ourselves? Is what we've done in this community, and it's very interesting to the utility. Because then they can stop spending money on nuclear plants. They can start spending money on insulation for your homes. And then when your energy costs go down and we put a new development on the side of the city, we have extra capacity because you're not using it anymore. If we get you down from 100% of what you need today to say 70% or even 50% of what you need today, well, the rest of what you don't use can go to somebody else's house. So now we don't have to spend as much money on transformers and nuclear plants and whatever. We just got the energy we already had. So we spread it out and share it more. All of these things intertwine. And if we can do a really good job of needing less at the end of the line, at the edge of the city, then we've done our part too, right? We just need less. So we've generated a whole bunch of our own energy. The picture on the top left is the first block of buildings. If you look really close, you can't quite tell. I know the buildings very well because I helped build them, but I mean, you'll have to imagine with me. There's an office on the top, there's another office on the left. They're a couple of stories each. They're just a little bit shy of net zero. They're not quite there. On the bottom right is a vet clinic that's sort of house sized and it's got a lot of solar on it. It's actually a little bit better than net zero. And the parking garage in the middle, they share. So that block, those 4 buildings work together. The block is net zero. So this is what we talk about when we say community energy. And I think you guys are going to see more stuff like this come up in the future to a point. And then when we run out of room and we can't make energy on our site that covers all our needs, we can do the buildings. But when we start adding electric vehicles, which we're very passionate about, we don't have enough energy for both. So we are still going to need more energy. So if we start talking about things that are off of the site and different ways that we can harvest energy from off the site, we are going to need other places where we can get energy. I have a timer on there apparently, sorry. So we're going to end up with energy fields. We're going to end up with grid assets. We have built some very large solar energy parks, which we're proud of and we're very happy to have been part of. They take a lot of land. And people can rightly complain that some of that land maybe should be used for agricultural purposes instead of for solar panels. One of my favorite places to put it is on a burnt out tobacco field. And then you can let the land recover for decades while it's doing other good things. And you can graze animals under there and you can do shade plantings under there. You can do a lot of things under a solar panel. You just got to plan for it. And that one that I just showed you at 130 kilowatts, that's 700 acres. So there's some land under there. But how many acres does it take around a nuclear plant for the safety zone? All of these topics are interchangeable topics. And the reality of NIMBY is just this huge problem. You guys are probably all familiar with the term NIMBY by now. Not in my backyard. If you didn't know that, it's one of our favorite swear words. The reality of NIMBY is so entrenched that it's really become more like banana. Banana has built absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. And it's as ridiculous as it sounds because there is nowhere that isn't somebody's backyard, right? I don't want that over there. Well, where do you want me to put it? In your neighbor's backyard? Like it's going to go somewhere because we need it. So unless you want to go back to an agrarian society where we don't have any factories that build steel to build tractors, it's like we have to cut right to zero if you want to start not having energy in anybody's backyard, right? So when we start talking about these things, people realize how bananas it is. Yes, pun intended. And we just have to get more creative. So we're big fans of big renewable energy systems that we can plug into the grid and use. But no matter what we do, we're still facing these affordability challenges. And you guys have all experienced it, or you've got family and friends who've experienced it. One of the solutions that we are seeing and that we're experiencing is a shift from goods to services. And this takes different expressions in different audiences. But for example, Eve Park, the one that I showed you, the semi-round buildings. In Eve Park, one of the ways we tried to cut costs was by removing some of these energy assets from the building itself. So I'm actually an investor there. I bought a property there. Buying, that's closing. One of the things that happens in the property is that I don't actually own the energy assets. The micro utility does. It's a condo development. And the condo development has all the normal sort of, anybody here live in a condo? It's similar to when you rent. One of the ideas behind condo is that it's really friendly towards you letting somebody else do all the maintenance for you. You have a condo fund. Everybody pays into the condo fund. It affords you certain privileges and it creates responsibilities on the condo. So if I don't happen to live there all year long, I know it's being taken care of. And the neighbors are all part of the condo and they will have a vote. And so we all kind of own it indirectly. So at ours, what we did is we used the condo to create some opportunities we did not otherwise have. For example, we've got solar on the roof and we've got lots of people who are morally attached to solar, but they don't know anything about how to take care of it. And they've got all these mixed ideas about what kind of maintenance it needs. Well, just leave that with us. We'll hire an expert. We've got a contract set up. We do an awful lot of solar. I personally have done 80 megawatts of solar and we've got 5 more here. Like we know solar. Let an expert take care of the solar. And we've got lots of heat pumps. Everybody thinks good things about heat pumps, but how do you do it? Filters? Do they have filters? I have to forget it. We've got a maintenance team. They will call you once every 6 months and your filters will magically get changed. And so we made a list and we took all of those things actually out of the property. So you don't even own the heater or the water heater or the ERV. The stuff that is the easiest to mess up and not maintain properly is owned by the micro utility, covered by your condo fees, which are heavily subsidized by the solar. The condo fees that we pay at this site are half of what the neighbors pay. And you're living in an energy efficient building, so your energy bill is also half of what the neighbors pay. And that's just from saving energy. So as you move into this, how do we make your life easier, make it easier and easier, give you 10 reasons to say, yes, this is a smarter way to live while your energy bills are half and your condo fees are half and your other stuff's half. And it's a nice, beautiful place to, okay, how many halves can we give you, right? Can we make this compelling? So we were doing things like that just to make the project work. And then realizing along the way, actually, this is kind of a good idea. We should think about how to share this idea with other people. There are some things that we are used to owning as a good, where really we're paying for the good to give us the service, like your car, right? What's the number one thing cars do? Nothing. They sit around and wait for you. Like 95% of a car's life is parked somewhere, right? Even if you take a lot of long trips, 95% of the car's life, it's in the garage, it's in the parking lot. Mine's sitting out there waiting for me right now. What do cars do? They don't do much. Why do we have cars? Because we want to get around. We want the service. We want the things the car provides. So if we start combining these ideas, taking a look at goods as a service and talk about transportation shifts now. I was talking about density earlier. When you have a lot of uses close together, you start to find synergies. If we can build a 5-minute walkable community, then people don't really care to use their car because I'm going to have to figure out parking. I don't know if there's going to be a spot walk. It's easier to walk. So if I could do a really nice job of planning the community and making it easier for people, then we have these other sort of implied wins. So we kind of took that a step further. We were trying to figure out how we could make this more accessible for more people without shooting ourselves in the foot by being too altruistic. So as the developer for Eve Park, we're building 21 homes per building in a neighborhood in London where the average family is 2-point-something people and they've got 2-point-something vehicles. We can't tell you don't get a car. But what we can say is if you move into Eve Park, there's 21 homes, there's 26 parking spaces, you only get one. You can have one car. So if you need your car for your independence, we totally relate to that. I'm guilty of that. So you can have a parking space. But there's 5 extra parking spaces. What do you do with those? Who gets those? Well, nobody gets those. Those are shared. Those are Eve Park's parking spaces. So what are you going to do with them? Well, that's where we put the shared cars. And we have an Eve Park car share program. And if you move in, you can get a membership. You do have to choose. So you can get a membership in the Eve Park car program because we have to check your record and make sure you're a safe driver and stuff, legal stuff. So you get a membership and then you pay for your use. And the use funds the car. And now I don't have one car. I have one car and one fleet. And the fleet's cool. It's all Teslas. And somebody else takes care of them and they all charge in the garage. I've got 100% EV capacity here. We've got everybody could drive an EV and they can all charge in the garage. So the extra 5 parking spaces, statistically speaking, are boatloads of extra in terms of out of that 90% of a car sitting around waiting for you, that's a lot of cushion time. So by the time we talk about who needs a car when, we actually have lots of cars. We've got more than we need. In fact, if we do the studies on it, what we're finding, this is reports, I have not experienced this. Other people have, and they're people I trust. Year 1, we have to have this much parking so people will believe us and they'll move in. But by year 3, when they've tried the car share a bunch of times, they're starting to like the fact that that car takes the salt damage in the winter and somebody else maintains it and it's always charged and ready. And whatever, that's great. I'll use that car. I'll save my car for when I have a conflict and I need to be in 2 places at once and my wife and I draw straws over who gets which car. And 5 years in, I'm really wondering why I'm paying for another car. And 10 years in, I'm selling my condo space back to the condo and I'm just using the car share all the time. And somebody else can take care of the cars as long as there's one there when I need it. And 10 years in, we have way too much parking. So all of a sudden we're thinking about, it's 10 years from now, autonomous vehicle technology is way ahead of policy. And I mentioned that we spend a lot of time with government. We're looking at 10 years from now, you can just join from anywhere in the neighborhood and use the app to summon your car and it'll pick you up at the front door. And we'll just have a bunch of cars stored at Eve Park and they'll be on the maintenance plan and you can just buy a membership. So that's 10 years from now's problem, but it's pretty exciting to be able to joke about that and be very serious actually, that this is something that's coming. So, and if we step back from the practical day-to-day that we know and we think about what's really happening in the middle of all these trends, it's not a big leap for me to say I don't really care. I mean, I do, but I don't really care about my car. I care about what my car does for me. So if I can get what my car does for me cheaper and safer and more reliably and more flexibly, okay, I'll listen. And 5, 10 years from now, I'm really listening. And so it starts to change. Anyway, we're going to see this kind of discussion come up in far more contexts, I think, partly out of necessity. Okay, so I have a fun video here for you just because this is the way we're living at Eve Park. It's a little bit of a jump for us because we're not used to this, but this is already in 50 other countries. My student made this video for me. I need to redo this and give you a photo of the real one happening at site right now. The driveway is a Dutch concept. It's called a Woonerf. And as you drive into the driveway, there's no sidewalk, there's no drive lane. It's all pavement. It's all concrete. And the idea is that you're supposed to be a little uncomfortable as a driver and wondering if your kids or the pets are going to come running out. So everybody drives slow and careful. And it works wonderfully everywhere that anybody's ever done this. It works really well. So your experience as the driver is you drive up to the front door. You've got kind of like, think of 407 transponder. You've got an access card in your car that is an RFID scanner card, lives in your car. You drive up to the front door of the garage. It scans you, makes sure that you actually belong there. Then it does a check and it brings you your parking spot. It opens the door, it turns everything off. You park your car, you go out, punch a little code, it closes, and then it stores your car up in the air. We don't like to talk about this, but Ontario, Canada is #1 in the world for car theft. It's a big deal. And if you think about it, airports, we have a lot of really nice cars that just sit there and wait until somebody drives up with a tow truck and says, yeah, this guy wasn't making his payments, and they drive away and the car shows up in South Africa a week later. And it's happening a lot. But it's really hard to steal a car that's behind a security door 15 feet in the air. So we are having a lot of conversations around not just transportation as a service, but how many other built-in services and ideas are kind of with this idea. Go figure, if you do something right, it usually has spin-off benefits. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about how do we just do the right thing. If we put these cars in a tower and then we put solar on the tower, it gives people a message and it makes it so you can charge the car, and we just get all these other things that sort of snowball together. If they're all electric cars, I don't know if any of you guys have been studying this, but the carbon footprint on an electric car is a real blessing. It's so much better than a non-electric car for a whole list of reasons. And we can argue about nuclear and things like that another day, but it's just a big deal if you simplify the architecture of the car and get rid of all the motor components and just make it an electric car. And there's so many spin-off benefits that go all over. So if we can support these technologies in clever ways, like have a garage where you can fit 26 of these and charge them all. And they're going to sit there for 90% of the time. So you can charge it overnight. You don't need them all to charge in 15 minutes. So we can have trickle charges, and we can put controllers on that, and they can take turns, and we can let the engineers geek out and do what the engineers do. I supervise our engineering team. So we have all kinds of fun talks about this stuff. So that leads into these technology shifts. And how many different tools do we need to think about? How much of this is a tools game? We've been making good tools for a long time. Lots of people ask, how long does solar last? Forgetting that we've had it on satellites in space for like 80 years, right? And it's still working fine. So a lot of these technologies are far more mature than the general public realizes. And yes, the solar does get beat up over time. It's not going to be working perfectly on year 80 compared to year 1. Year 1 is going to be better, but it fades very slowly. So I've got solar panels that are now, decades old on some of our projects. And for the first 10 years, it's going to go down maybe 0.5% per year. And a 20-year-old project is still going to be producing at 90% of what it was rated for. And by the time it's 20 years old, I'm looking at the finances on the whole thing saying, I want to rip it all down and donate it to a school somewhere and put in new solar because it's going to be twice as good. West 5 is only 10 years old. I started building buildings there in 2015. That building wasn't even done until 2017. And the first solar panels we put on there were 320 watts per panel. Same size panel is now almost 600 watts. And it's not that long ago. So this matters, right? So much so that when we do our planning, talk about technology shifts, when we do our planning, if I'm going to build a 30-year project, I know that in year 30, I'm using technology I don't have today. So we actually have to think about that, which is kind of a mind bender. If I'm going to build net zero energy buildings and I want to use a lot of solar on them, I know 5% per year, the panels get better. So we actually very deliberately have stalled a couple of them because we were sort of betting that if we waited 6 months, we'd get better panels, and we did. And so some of this is, anyway, that's a mind bender for another day. Now, when we talk about technology shifts and we start asking about what belongs in home, what kinds of trends make sense there, what is the right level of tech for the home? We did a whole bunch of surveys. You guys have probably all seen people who would like to have Google cook their supper for them, and other people who would say, just, get Big Brother out of my house. I don't want Alexa to know what I just said, and have that show up on my search bar next time. That's just weird. So we live in the two extremes. And we all know people on both sides of this probably. We did a whole bunch of surveys. We've got a marketing team. We did a lot of research. And we went out into the market and we just asked people who were buying food, and we went to the street and we went to the campus. So we went to a bunch of places, just asked a whole bunch of people. When we say smart, what do you think of? What do you think should make a home smart? And we figured we'd get all these debates of technology answers coming up. It didn't happen even once. Almost everybody, it was like 80% of the people we talked to. Keep in mind, it's not this room, it's just sort of out there talking to the general public, right? 80% of the people we talked to said something about food, that a smart home is close to the market. A smart home is where I'm near family. And we're stepping back. Well, okay, what you're saying is brilliant. It makes complete sense, but that is like not what we had on our radar. And so we wrote up all our reports. We did all our studies internally and decided at the end of the day that our best option to provide a smart home was to build a smart community that's master planned well. And then when we start talking about the buildings and the tech that goes into the buildings, we want a reasonable minimum of a platform you can build from so that our buyers have the option to put Google and Alexa in there and do the, and let Alexa track what you ordered on your groceries and reorder it for you next week if you want. But not invasive. We'll put the skeleton in there and let you decide what you want to do. So the tech that we use, it's very similar to apartment building tech. If you go to the front of our buildings, each of the door locks is a smart lock. And there's reasons for that. The biggest reason is because the condo corporation has records on the other side and can see who's accessing the lock. And if they've got your code, good. And if something weird happens, we know about it. And we don't care if it's you with your code, that's fine, it's your house. But if something weird happens, we know. So which we think is a good thing. Whenever somebody comes up and rings the doorbell, it's a video doorbell with one-way video. So if you ring the doorbell, it snaps a picture. So if the Amazon guy's there a little too long, you've got a picture of it. And when it rings the doorbell, it'll ring your phone, just like an apartment building. You can answer it and you can say, hey, yep, no problem. Just I'll unlock the door, leave it inside the door. It's going to watch you. And it'll lock in 20 seconds and I'll just keep an eye on you, make sure everything's okay, which they know means you're peeking on them or whatever, but it means they're going to behave. So you open the door, they drop the stuff off, they lock the door and they leave, you lock the door and you're done. So we have what we like to think of as sort of a basic level of technology, and all of that is secure and encrypted, and it goes through a local server on site. It doesn't go through Amazon Web Services or any of these big guys. So you actually have the tech guys had to work hard on this. But when you answer with your phone is connecting to the server at your house. It actually tunnels right in, and there's no other big web people involved. So we think that's smart. You have a fancy doorbell, you have a fancy door lock. There's reasons why the door lock is good. And then it ties into a fancy thermostat in your kitchen. And that thermostat also has an app and gives you the chance to do some temperature controls. It has one light switch, you can add more. The one light switch is an all off circuit to turn off all the lighting in the house because you drove away for vacation and shoot, turn off the lights just in case. And so we can do a couple of things that we think are helpful. And if you want to add lots of music services and other, you can do that. If you want a blind control system that will, because we have a great room option in one of our homes where you get a 2-story tall place, so you could put the big Christmas tree. And it would be a bugger to put a blind up there. So you can use a blind automated thing if you want to open and close the blinds. There's lots of toys you can add, but what we've discovered is that flexibility seems to be the theme. And all this stuff keeps getting cheaper. So what we're seeing in digital technology themes around the house is that the backbone is what people kind of need going forward. And there's a lot of talk about that. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. One thing that we did do is energy monitoring. There are really smart, really cheap energy monitors now. So for a couple of $100 a house, I can put a toy inside your electrical panel, which is really great for my team. And for you guys, you wouldn't even have to care. It's a set of CTs, they're little clamps that go on the wires of the device. And then a computer program lives inside this little box and it tracks, and it can measure things like a consistent frequency, like your fridge compressor turning off and on, because it does the same thing every time it cycles on. And it uses complicated math and it just subtracts that out. And then when you log in onto the web portal, you get a circle that says fridge. And then it's got a bigger circle that says plugs, because we just subtract all the things we know and whatever's left is plugs, right? So it's a really handy app. When people move into Eve Park, as part of their purchase and sale agreement, we disclose it to them that we are watching all this data, but we're scrubbing all the people information out of it. And we're doing research to say, like, how much of the time is a heat pump running? What do people need for it? Because we're trying to keep improving our homes. So as people move in, they're generally very supportive as long as we don't know what they're doing. And we don't. We know what 84 families worth of heat pumps are doing. So it works out great for us because it means we have really nice research to be able to show if our designs we're actually watching and we can learn from our mistakes. It's great for us. Also helps the micro utility because there is a micro utility, so we can watch for maintenance reasons. And if we can see that things are working the way they should, that's great. If somebody's signal is doing weird blippy things, it'll alarm us. And then that'll send a message off to the maintenance utility to figure out what to do about it. And on the other side of that, there are 2 web portals. There's our portfolio portal, where it protects and scrubs all the private information, but we can see 84 homes worth of heat pumps. And then there's your personal portal. Like you log in, you see the bubble that says fridge and the bubble that says heat pump. And you can see, we had the door open a lot that day. Moving day, the heat pump was running a lot because we had the door open. So really, really helpful and useful technology. We start talking about creative business models. This comes back to things like, where are we sharing vehicles? I got to watch my time. I'm going to run out of time. So this comes back to things like our micro utility having the right amount of data to be able to do what it does and charge you for your use, but really make your life easier and not make any inconvenience to you. So then you can just log in online and see what you want to see. And the parking business, we have really interesting discussions around the Eve Car model. I already told you a little bit about it before, but we're really excited about our opportunity to be able to have a fleet of cars that we can offer to our residents. And if you want to take the Sport Coupe, take the Sport Coupe. And we've got a bunch of commuters and you can maybe one truck and we can just share the truck. If you've got a moving day coming or your kids need something, you can sign out the truck. But the whole idea of having a fleet instead of having a car creates so many possibilities as long as the business works. And all of that is only made possible by business. So we're just glad that we have good partners. My marketing team keeps reminding me to say that we're proud of stuff. This was a fun one. We get awards every now and then. This one, CNN Style, has a magazine they publish every year. And they do a feature on what's going on in the building industry, and they pick sort of the top 10 big trends that are happening architecturally. So we got named beside a project from Chongqing, China, and from Milan, and from there was one in Paris, and this really cool list of projects. And they had to clarify it was London, Ontario, Canada, and we were just anyway really proud of that. So we got named in CNN Style as in 2024 one of the top 10 most influential architectural projects globally. So that was really cool. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to move to the question period. Here's my contact info. The organizers of the event will have my slides. There's so much to talk about here. I feel like I've been skipping across the tips of icebergs and shooting fire hose at you guys. So hopefully this was valuable and you got at least something out of it. The theme that I would leave you with, if I had to sort of say one thing to please remember this, it's doable. Like I'm a capitalist. I'm a tree-hugging green capitalist, but I have to pay my family at the end of the day too. My development budget has to work or I'm not going to do any more projects. Right? Like we have to make money on this. And this works. Companies can make money doing the right thing for the environment, for the community, for the people who will live there. Like it just works. So we would love to see more people do this. It doesn't work by accident. I mean, I had 100 consultants, excuse me, I had 50 consultants and 50 contractors working on Eve Park. At West 5, there's even more. So, I mean, it takes planning and it takes effort, but it is absolutely doable. And we would love to see this happen in town locally, and we'd love to see this happen in lots of other places. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you got something out of that. I think we have some time for questions and answers here. I'll do my best. Quick, before Sheila gets out her question. Yes.
I can take a mic to them.
You want to? Yeah, we'll make one. Actually, I'll use this mic. Why don't you take
Okay.
this one?
Okay. Who was it who was asking the question?
Sorry, one more time, good and loud. Current detached buildings. You got me. Thanks, Alex. I'm just going to wait for Alex, then I'll repeat the question. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Is there any way to recalibrate current detached buildings to make use of the energy benefit of condos you described so tellingly?
Thank you. Am I on? I can yell fine, but I want to. Pro's going to do this. Okay, so we've got lots of different ways to talk about existing buildings. That's definitely going to be a fire hose. But I would say for the last few decades now, we've had different versions of government ideas on this. But there's a whole group of professionals who do energy audits and various versions of spin-off ideas that build on an energy audit. And the purpose of the study is to say, you got a building, we've got ideas. We'll take a look at your building. Sometimes we'll hook meters on it. Sometimes we'll use big fans and see how it leaks, and all kinds of things they can do to test and confirm why the building uses the energy it does and figure out where that energy is getting lost. So if they do one of these studies and then they make you sort of the shopping list of things you can do to fix it, there's predictable things at the top of that list. So if you're thinking about buildings you live in, always airtightness is number one. Don't get new windows, fix the windows you have. Like start there, because most of the leaks are around the window. It's not the window. You replace the window, you've still got to fix the stuff around it. So sometimes you can save a lot of money by just fixing the easy stuff, fix the leaks. And it kind of goes from there. Airtightness is number one, you go from there. So these guys will write these reports for you. There's different guys that do these studies from, I'll say, detached, like smaller homes versus, say, an apartment building. They're not the same companies usually that will do those works, but sort of carte blanche, I'd say energy audits. The EnerGuide program, if you're familiar with the EnerGuide program, is the one for a house. For bigger than a house, you'd use a different program. But there's lots of these folks at Natural Resources Canada who specialize in that. And that's their role, is to help you find ways to make the building use less. And if you do that on any building inside the urban boundary, it's going to help the urban energy footprint. And anything, because the grid it's pretty robust. It's pretty well built. So there's usually fingers into different pieces of the grid and different angles. There's never just one place it connects. So anywhere inside the urban boundary where you create an energy benefit, it hits the whole thing. So, which is why they don't have to be very picky about it. If they put a program out that's fairly non-discriminate, just lets everybody apply, they don't really have to care where people benefit from using the program. It'll help the whole network. So just get lots of people to do it, go fix your homes, and all of us will win together. So you don't even have to do very much, I would say. You just have somebody look at your house, give you a short shopping list of things to save energy. It'll help everybody. And it's a great use of tax dollars too. It leverages really good in the economy and creates other economic benefit. And it's another discussion for another night.
Derek, is your mic not live?
I don't know. Sorry. I'm hearing my echo. I have to behave. I have to be closer to the mic there.
Okay, you can be good friends.
Yeah, there we go. Up at the front here. I'll repeat the question out too. Go ahead.
I just, do you have the example, or are any of the buildings in maybe this development, do you have any examples where it's a not-for-profit doing below market housing, and can you cash flow those projects?
Right. Okay. So this one's a little out of my depth, but I'll do my best. The question's about not-for-profits doing below market housing. And I'm going to say categorically that shifts the targets in the math, and you have different tools available. So there are some government support programs for the development side to try to help them make the numbers pencil out. And you got to pay tight attention to what they need and how they do their work and all that stuff, right? But the technical side, we're going to use the same tools. You just sort of choose which ones based on the project. So I'm always going to use good windows and more insulation. I'm always looking at how to simplify the building envelope and have fewer corners. There's always a debate between the architects and the engineers about how to keep it beautiful but make it work. If engineers had, again, I'm going to make fun of engineers because I am one, but if engineers had their way, the most efficient box is a concrete box underground, right? So we can't live in those, but there is a line in there, right? So so for nonprofits, I would say you're going to head for the simple tools and use them as much and thoroughly as you can, right? And anything we can sort of multi-depth, try to do the same thing bigger and scale it. That's where we would focus. Kind of a vague answer. I hope that was helpful.
Okay, so married to an engineer, totally get it.
Yeah.
As a follow-up to that, what is the price range then?
Sure. What's the price range of what's going on here? Eve Park is a little above market. West 5 is a mix. Generally speaking, targeting market. Most of it is market rate. But then we had such a strong response, and we're all capitalists, right? So we're about 5% above market for a lot of them. So it's not even a big premium, but that was because we had really strong demand. It wasn't because it cost more. So I'm going to say categorically, net zero does not need to cost more. It needs to be thought out. And it doesn't need to take longer to think it through. But it needs a team that has experience and knows how to do these things, right? So you do have to step back a little bit. When LEED was brand new, the first municipalities and public agencies that got on to LEED started doing things like requiring LEED silver on a public building. Anytime you'd build a new city building or whatever, we're going to go LEED silver. The first bunch of LEED buildings cost too much because people were adding things to get points. The second generation of LEED buildings were cheaper than original because they stepped back. They looked for things like callbacks and mistakes and areas of weakness in the design, and they optimized those to get points. So they got their points and they hit their LEED goal, but they had a better and cheaper building by the time they were done. So, and this is exactly what happens in every new market swing. You get people jump in, they had requirements, it cost too much. We all rebound, we step back, we think, we have more time, we do better. So, I mean, we're seeing the same thing here. Net zero energy buildings do not need to cost more, but you got to plan them.